myself. Oh, maybe the live one is this one because they want you to see
There you go.
things. Ah, okay. But then here you don't see things then. Maybe you should do this way. Then,
If we have to, yeah.
yeah, because there's
Nobody's
nothing
here. It's okay.
show
Nobody's here.
anything.
Why not?
You should go to another one's channel maybe. Oh no, then
On
no.
my channel.
No, you should go to.
My channel. So
Yeah, but that's 9 p.m. That's really another one. Then maybe just do flip it.
yeah, we have to. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can see what people.
At the microphone.
Yeah. Or just take your time, doesn't matter.
Yeah, nobody's on it
Nobody
anyway.
there anyway.
Who cares?
Yeah, should go to this one right now. Yeah. There we go. Yes, go to this one right now. That's hilarious. There we go. Oh yeah, you need to turn this off. Oh, you want to start again? Maybe. Huh? Hi. Sorry, it's our first time do the live. We try to figure things out. I couldn't see who's there because you need to flip the camera, I think. No, they don't show.
Okay.
I don't think so.
I did.
Oh, okay.
Hey guys, if anybody's there, would you mind maybe putting something in the chat and kind of see if we can see the chat as we go?
Okay, I can put something. My. You see here?
Welcome to the chat. That's the time. Let's pop up real quick.
Yeah, maybe you could really see.
Okay, well, let's get started.
So yeah, but at least here I have another screen opened. Maybe I could see some people writing anything. So anyway.
All right, so we kind of got set up, and as Landy mentioned, we're trying to figure things out. This being our first live, so today we're just gonna kind of see how it goes. Hopefully, wait a little bit, see if people join, but just have some basic idea of what we're going to talk about. We're going to be talking about some basic ideas.
Yeah.
That sometimes people who want to come to Mexico may have. Like one of the biggest things is where to live.
Right.
So,
yeah.
And we'll be talking about things like budget, or maybe what people should be considering when they're moving here, right? What is your budget? What is your age? What type of lifestyle do you have? We'll also be talking about things like in real estate, and it's something that's kind of near and dear to our
heart. We always got questions from people. Should we rent? Should we buy? Right. And how to rent is because we have been through renting, buying,
and now
leasing, and now selling.
Right.
So we've been through not completed the selling process yet, but we've been to like
We are in the process of selling our house in Queretaro, which we also just happened to lease, which was kind of a weird situation in itself, but we'll come back and talk more about that when we get into real estate. And then something a little bit maybe more simple, things like transportation once you get here. And again, this can deal with whether you should bring a personal vehicle, buy, or just simply use things like public transportation. And of course, as people come in, if you have any questions really about anything, of course, we'll try to help you as best we can with the knowledge we've gained over the about 2.5 years we've been here.
About that.
Yeah. So about 2.5 years, we've seen quite a few things. Again, not everything, but of course, we'd love to try to help you as best we can.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I guess we can start with where to live in Mexico.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's about the lifestyle first. If some people, I think most people will choose the beach at the beginning. Lots of people want to retire here, or even digital nomads. Maybe they prefer to live in a smaller, like beach city, beach town.
Right. Yeah, I think that tends to be like the Mexican dream, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Again, I know we've mentioned this a few times as we've talked about this topic in the past. I think a lot of times people get sucked into the dream of like what you see on like Mexico Live or House Hunters International.
Yeah.
It's always selling the beach idea. And again, not that there's anything wrong with that. For certain people, that could be a great thing. I mean, I know we love the beach.
For their winter time,
for visiting.
For visiting parts. Yes, I think for me, it's just too hot. After a while, it's getting too hot.
Right.
Maybe we didn't go in the right season.
Sure.
Should have gone in winter.
So, and some things we have to consider, because I know you've lived in a beach before.
I've been living in beach in China, in the South China, for 6 months. I work on the beach.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, it was a beautiful dream. I always go there for winter time, stay 1 or 2 months, have fun there. But once I really live there, and just after months and months, even after 3-4 months, I just feel I get so bored. It's still a beach city, beach town, not too many places to go.
Right.
But that's just for me. And I find every day, I don't even go to beach anymore.
Right.
Yeah, even I go to the beach for the sunset, but I don't really step into the beach. But that's the thing. I've been living the beach before. Right. So I would prefer maybe just go there for vacation.
Right. And Christian, we see you there. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Christian.
And one of the things you mentioned was, how has Mexico City been so far? So I guess we can jump off that real quick and just kind of answer your question about that, and we'll kind of come back to the beach.
Right.
Mexico City so far, in our, at least my opinion, is so far we love it. It's great.
Yeah.
There's just so much to do here. We are slowly putting out content about some of the things we're doing, kind of like daily vlog, and hopefully we can share some of that with you. I mean, when it comes you're talking about such a big city, and again, 20-25 million people, and everything that comes with it, the good and the bad.
Sure. Yeah.
But as far as the good, I mean, you're never running out of things to do. Even last night, just for example, we were luckily enough to find a babysitter for Louie. And that was actually one of the first nights we've gone out in actually quite a while. And we went down to Roma Norte, which I know is one of the popular areas. And we went to a kind of a salsa club, which was fun.
Yeah.
And that's just, one of many things. I mean, obviously, there's things we still want to go to. There, as we've said, we've been to a few museums. The green space here is wonderful.
Yeah, the Chapultepec Park is beautiful. We still haven't been to every corner of the park. And
sure.
Yeah, 2 days ago, we did our adventure. We went to the Central, just want to go to the Central Zocalo area. But we ran into a market, and we just keep going, and it never ended. And just finally, I'm in another part of the town. It looks so different.
Yeah.
It's very different from where we live.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I want to say, just so much things to do. We love it.
And so, Christian, I'm guessing, they say
he also lived in CDMX.
Right. So I guess you can obviously kind of, definitely talk about that. And something like you mentioned, like heaven and hell. Sure, all the things to do. So much green space, the weather. I mean, obviously, you must be enjoying the weather today. It's absolutely beautiful today. But it's kind of interesting. Then you go to like what Landy just mentioned, that market, which was just on the north side of the Zocalo and kind of east of Tepito.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've been there, Christian, but that market is just like street market, and it's just like the whole blocks and blocks and blocks, which again, that can kind of go either way. For some people, it's great because there's so many inexpensive things to buy there, and everything you're looking for, whether it's food or clothing or fabrics or Christmas shopping or toys, but it's a little bit, I mean, just to be honest, maybe a little bit more dingy. There's a little bit more so crowded. And so it can kind of give you the feeling of both heaven and hell just in one little area.
Yeah, that was not even weekend.
Yeah.
It was Wednesday, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
And so, I could imagine what that area looks like on a weekend.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, you do have things like the traffic, which, of course, is crazy here. That can definitely be hell.
Yeah.
The pollution. We haven't been here. We've only been here 5 going on 6 weeks. And actually had an interview with a relocation host. And she said, well, yeah, kind of the worst pollution time is coming. She said January, February, heading into March is usually when the pollution is worst.
Oh, that's true. Like any big city,
right?
Winter time is the worst.
It's dry. It's away from the rainy season.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something we are not looking forward to, but something we will experience very soon. Is just how bad the pollution gets during this winter time.
Maybe that's a time to hit the beach.
Yeah.
Get away from Mexico City.
Yeah. And so I guess I can even kind of bring us back to where to live.
Right.
The living in the beach is a different thing. You have to consider everyday heat and sand and humidity. But as compared to if you live somewhere like Mexico City, where the weather is much nicer, one of the great things, and again, I'm sure you can attest to this, is that it's so easy to get away. Right? If you live in Mexico City and you want to go visit a beach, it's great.
Yeah, and the flight is cheap here. I mean, more reasonable, if I use the right word.
Yeah, I know some people get triggered with that.
Yeah.
It's cheap here, right? It's more reasonable, less expensive, however you want to categorize it.
It's like $100.
Right. Yeah.
And
I know right now. Excuse me. I know we've been looking into it a little bit more, and the prices have gone up slightly, but still very affordable. Right?
For a round trip.
Yeah, maybe $100 to a couple $100 for a round trip to the beach. Again, you can't beat that. We've been looking into it. We'll probably maybe take a trip soon to the beach.
Yeah. Maybe in January after the Christmas.
Yeah. But if you want to live there, like I said, a lot of the beach towns, maybe except for like Mazatlan and maybe Puerto Vallarta, they are kind of small towns, right? Maybe Cancun is kind of big, but definitely not on the size of some of the bigger towns. And so a lot of times I think people also go to these beach towns. And like you said, after the kind of the newness wears off, I think sometimes there's not as much to do there.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, sure, the beach is nice, but are you going to go to the beach every day for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years in that heat?
Yeah, and once it's a small town, the issue is normally you go to the regular places, which are the popular bars or restaurants. You may bump to the same people again and again.
Sure.
Is that the lifestyle you like?
Right.
Some people may love it.
Right. Or on the other side of that, then one of the things is just kind of high turnover rates of tourists, and so like these new friends, right? And for some people that's great. Yeah. Some people like to go out; they like to meet new people from all over the world, or all over the country, and so for that, I guess it could be cool, right?
Yeah, like a small town. I have a friend living in the Zihuatanejo. I called her the other day. She said, "Yeah, the thing is, they have the winter season price. A lot of Canadian, American snowbirds." They went there, and all the prices along the beach went up a lot.
Right.
She asked me, "You guess how much the coconut shrimps cost there?" And I said, "Like $250, $300." She said, "Yeah, like $320." And then she asked me, "Guess how many pieces you get?" I said, 20, and she answered me 7. That was shocked me, unless they're huge. But I don't know. I just feel that's ridiculous.
Right.
But even you live there, you don't want to go to those restaurants every day.
Sure.
That's too expensive.
Right.
Like if we stay in the Puerto Vallarta for that 1 month, we had the food along the beach once or twice, but most of the time we went to the local site.
Sure.
Right. We found a cheaper tacos, more reasonable price, more local price.
Yeah, if you get away from the more touristy areas, and that could be something when you're talking about expense, right? And that can kind of go into the budget,
right?
Where you're going to live. So you do have like the one lifestyle is kind of the beach areas. But I guess on the other side, kind of where we have chosen to live since we've been here, has been more interior, right? So when you start getting more like central and highlands, Mexico, then you start getting into the the better weather for the most part, and pricing can change a little bit. I know somebody just mentioned who mentioned about the price of the expanding and the small. Oh yeah, well I hear it says Mexico City is still expensive, right? But it's worth it.
Yeah.
Now again, we have maybe a unique take on this, and again, maybe if you're joining us on live, the way we see it, when we go at least grocery shopping, we find it to be not as expensive or very reasonable.
We have more choices to choose more lower price products. Market.
Right.
We do have lots of markets open here.
Right. Like I would say, again, our experience is limited, but comparing here buying groceries to like Queretaro, I think like produce is much less expensive here.
Yeah.
Right. Meat's kind of on the same level. Street food and smaller restaurants on the streets, maybe not street food, but like the little smaller restaurants, tend to be very inexpensive. I would say even less than places like Puerto Vallarta, less than Querétaro. So I think a lot of things in Mexico City are less expensive, but I think the one big thing that's more expensive is rent. Rent and real estate.
Yeah, rent is more. Yes. And any transportation, if you don't call taxi, they always rip you off. So we always call Didi, but transportation are much cheaper here.
Yeah.
The metro bus was 6 peso for one trip. And in Querétaro, that's what I can compare. That was 11, right? 11, someplace maybe 9, somewhere there.
Right.
And some city, I know they even count by stops, how many stops you go. And here, the metro was only 5 pesos.
As far as you want to go.
Yeah.
Right. Metro bus, 6 pesos.
And the electronic bike, the iconic bike.
Yeah,
iconic bike, right?
No.
What's the E stands for?
Eco bike, not economy, ecological, whatever you want to call it. It's like friendly to the environment.
Right. Okay.
I think that'd be Evo bike. Maybe an eco bike is an economical bike. Maybe
I don't know. I just find it's not an electronic.
One of the things that we've liked so far is what they call the eco bike, which are the city bikes. Again, which is another great way to get around. You do have to pay for a yearly subscription, you could call it, and I think that was 545 pesos or 525 pesos, somewhere in there. Between 525 and 545 pesos for the year. But that gives you unlimited access to these bikes that are all over this. Well, I shouldn't say all over the city. They're in a lot of places in the city. And you can get those bikes. You can use it up to 45 minutes for free. Right. And then if you go over 45 minutes, they charge you like 20 pesos for a certain amount of time. Yeah. But like I said,
most places convenient.
You're not going to drive. You're not going to ride a bike for over 45 minutes.
Yeah. Like once we were on the Avenue Reforma, if you are tired of walking, then take the bike.
Yeah, exactly. And you can kind of do a combination of everything.
Right. So let's say what.
It can be expensive.
Yeah, Christian said Chapultepec is endless and they are expanding it even more.
Oh,
I
know.
So.
Are they reopening up the amusement park there? Like, I don't know if anybody out there can answer it as far as expanding. I know they're kind of reopening that amusement park where the big Ferris wheel is.
Yeah.
Kind of, I think you told me it used to be open in the past. And then during COVID, it shut down.
Not during the COVID. They had accident.
Oh, before?
Yeah, the roller coaster got accident. A few people died. That's why they shut it down.
Yeah. And so now it looks like they're kind of rebuilding it and kind of getting ready to open it up pretty soon. I'm again guessing within a year or so. Yeah. It may be open.
And from our window, we could see the
Ferris wheel.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's in the same area or not.
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay.
Well.
Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it's a different part.
I don't think there's multiple big Ferris wheels around the city. I'm pretty sure it's probably the same one.
Yeah.
Probably.
Okay. We're looking forward to that.
CDMX is still expensive but worth it. We're getting nasty smog. Yeah, it's getting there.
Yeah, true story. Hi, and he or she said, I cannot handle the smog. CDMX makes me sick, especially the throat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a little bit feeling at the beginning when I just moved here. It's kind of intense. But these days, I think I'm getting used to it.
Yeah. Now, the one I think it may be affecting more a little bit is Louie, right?
Yeah, the kid.
Right. And again, we did mention this even when we moved here and things like why we chose Queretaro at the beginning. And again, he maybe had trouble expressing it, and again, this is just my personal feeling or opinion about it, because he does have a little bit of cough and
allergy.
Yeah, maybe it's allergy, and I think that could be caused by the pollution. Because at night he tends to cough. During the day he's fine. At night he tends to cough a little bit.
But he even had that allergy in Queretaro.
True. But again, maybe the pollution is just
yeah.
Time will tell. But yeah, pollution can be bad.
Yeah, it's just whole package. Any big city.
Oh, okay. There we go. They are opening.
Okay.
Oh, let's go. Rent can be expensive. I pay 4,000 pesos for an apartment near Toreo. Where's Toreo? I've never heard of that part of town. So I don't know. Is that a decent
4K pesos?
Yeah, for an apartment.
Okay. For an apartment near Toreo.
Toreo. I'm not too sure where that part of town is.
That's a good price, though.
It is a good price.
4K.
Right.
That's not bad.
And again, yeah, transportation and food services can be. I'll change the word for you. Can be inexpensive. Yeah, and especially if you shop in the local mercados, right? The tianguis.
Oh yeah, I love it.
That's where we get our produce every Thursday, and we also tend to eat there also because it's so inexpensive.
It's just convenient and
inexpensive
and tastes good. We found the baba call yesterday.
Oh yeah,
it's the same one as Polanco on Saturday.
It's kind of a moving little street mercado. I think on Thursday it's in our area. And I talked to one gentleman the first time we went, and he said on Friday they're in around Chapultepec. And then just by coincidence or chance, we went to Polanco on a Saturday, and we had and we saw one there as well by the Lincoln Park.
Lincoln Park,
right?
Yeah.
And we just ate there, and then yesterday this last Thursday we went to eat, and we found out that the barbacoa we ate was the exact same one that we ate in Polanco.
Yeah.
We asked them, "You're the same ones that are in Polanco?" They said, "Oh yeah, that's us." So it's the exact same market that moves around. And again, really good food, really good prices on produce.
Oh, the flautas are really good.
Oh yeah. What else? And you mentioned something about the amusement park. Oh, Aztlan is the name of the park that they're getting ready to open. Right? They're adding a whole new. Adding a parkour area. Okay, interesting. The new Cineteca and more parks.
Wow.
Okay, excellent.
Awesome.
Also the train museum or something.
Train museum or something.
Yeah,
okay, good to know. Thank you, Christian.
Mexico City is only getting better. From our limited experience here, I know we've traveled here a few times before, but from those travel times to now, it's definitely just getting better and better. We enjoy it. Like I think that's kind of the whole reason why we moved here.
Like yesterday or Wednesday, we couldn't get on the line 1, the pink line, because they're fixing it. So they partially make the new line 1, but which is good. It caused some inconvenience for us. But on the other side, you're expecting something nice and newer.
Right.
But which is good. They're doing something.
Right. It might be a short-term inconvenience, but in the long term, it'll probably be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
True story. The coughing and uncomfortable feelings you and Louie are experiencing are signs that your body is overwhelmed. It's these signs that people ignore for years until they get very sick. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, like people live in big city. I'm from Shanghai.
Yeah.
My grandma is 94.
Right.
The other grandma over 85, 90.
Right.
I mean, you cannot say, people get sick here, there.
Absolutely.
But in the end, just about what do we feel comfortable with. Like for some people, they live in like a better air place, I call it, for whole life. Yeah, that's very, very sensitive for them.
Sure.
But I mean, for me, for this moment, I want to explore big city.
Right.
So I have to sacrifice some parts.
Right.
If it hits my health a little bit, let it be.
Right. And again, we're definitely not saying you're wrong. We just don't know. Right. It's something, we're still new here. Actually, we're still trying to find our own personal doctors and pediatricians.
Yeah.
Again, and these are things that obviously we'll talk about, with our physicians and talk about with the pediatrician to Louie. Again, it could be something as simple as allergies, or again, it could be something, more. But again, until we see a doctor, again, physically he's still around. He's still very active. Like crazy active.
Our kids cough and fever from time to time.
But that's something we need to consider. Sure, and it is something we have to consider over the long term. And really, in the reality of things, again, one of the fortunate things about our position is, in a year or two, if we think it's getting bad or we don't like it, we can always move on.
Yeah, right? There's so many other options.
Right. But then even things like, even in Queretaro, right, which is a much smaller town, you're talking the whole state is like just a couple of million people, and the city itself is maybe over 1 million. there was still, it even had its own types of pollution, like we've talked about, because it is a big manufacturing hub.
Yeah, it is.
It is a desert, and so you get a lot of wind
That's
that blows a lot of sand.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, to me, pollution is kind of hard to escape unless you go to a really small little town
Yeah.
somewhere. But then again, you're sacrificing, enjoying your life. So
Yeah, like when we stayed in outside Houston, the farm, people know that. Yeah, that was a 3 acreage we bought. We fixed the house. We stayed there for a couple of months. Sure, the air is beautiful. We live in one of the biggest national forests.
Right.
But later on, the thing is not so much to do there. Not so much to do there. And I'm like, I want to do things. Yeah. I don't want to hear the gunshots, people shooting, and then look at birds every day.
Yeah,
it's just not for me.
Yeah. Yeah, so and then, Christian, you make the point about all the trees, right? And that's true. Something I think we've even talked about as well. Like, there's so much trees here. I think it really does help with kind of controlling the pollution and the noise, and the noise as well too. So that's definitely a good thing. And like I said, there are pockets where you can find good air quality, quietness, and I think we live in a fairly good area as far as cleanliness, as far as I can see the sky outside right now, for whatever that means.
Yeah. So we can continue our topic. Like, we talk about the beach. Maybe it's not good for someone. What's the disadvantage living in a beach town? People should consider. It's not just it's a beautiful dream. The heat. That's number one. Yeah, because you always see the beach on TV, on the video, like, oh, it's so beautiful.
Right.
But the reality is, once you get there, the humidity, the heat, and then also cost. If you need AC all the time, all the bills goes up.
And it's still a better price than like in the US, but it's still it's something you have to take into effect if you're looking at a budget or what type of budget you're on. Because I think people, like I said, I think Mexico does a good job of selling the dream of the beach and the idea, because that's kind of what's promoted. When people go on vacations, they go to the beaches and they have a great time, and rightfully so. It's beautiful water and expensive as compared to what they're coming from. But most people, I would imagine, are probably not coming from those types of environments. Think about the U.S. and Canada. I mean, there's only so much shoreline, right? And most of the people live, interior wise, or north. So when they experience that first summer and that heat, it's something they've probably never truly experienced for an extended period of time, right? They might say, "Oh, I went to Cancun, in March for spring break, or I went one summer in June." Yeah, well, you go for a few days, sure, you're going to have a good time. But again, day in, week, month, year after year, can you handle that heat? And how many times do we see things like these on the forums? Whether it's here in Mexico City or back in the Queretaro forums, like, oh, I lived in Merida. Oh, I lived in Puerto Vallarta. I lived pick a beach.
Playa de Carmen, something.
The heat is just too much here. So now I'm looking to go more interior.
Yeah.
Right. So I think number one you have to consider is just the heat and humidity.
Right. If somebody, I know some YouTuber, they live in, one girl, she lived in San Antonio, somewhere there, and so they moved to Mazatlan. Now they moved to La Paz. So for this family, they feel just similar weather. They're used to it.
Sure.
They've been living there since she's born. So for some people, maybe they're not used to it.
Right.
Like for us, I don't know. But
they were used to it.
But we still have season though. Right. Like we have hot summer, but not as hot as the beach. Sure. Also not hot the whole year long.
Well, I know like Shanghai is a little different than from like Texas, right? Because I know I'm from South Texas, where the heat is excruciating. You're talking about, we might have maybe January, February where it cools off a little bit. We don't really have a fall or spring, and the summers can be, days and weeks of 100+ weather every day. But again, it still doesn't make it any better to move to a beach. I'm much happier living in a place like Querétaro and here in Mexico City because of the weather. Like today, we took the dogs out for a long walk, and I've been commented to you. I mean, today is almost as nice weather day as you can get. It was absolutely beautiful, right? So, and again, you have to consider that when coming to, again, going back to the interior. The interior is going to give you better weather. It's going to give you, a lot of some big cities, whether you're, where you may choose. I know popular places are Querétaro, Mexico City, Oaxaca City, Monterrey.
right? These tend to be a little bit bigger towns for the most part. I know Oaxaca is maybe kind of small.
Guadalajara,
Puebla. I think
Um,
of all the ones I mentioned, maybe Monterrey might be the only hot one, but the rest of them have pretty good weather.
Monterrey got very hot in February. Yeah, that's actually, I didn't know that until I did the research.
Right.
Yeah, they got a hot season, but not really in the summer months. That was in February.
Right.
So good to know that.
Good to know, right?
Yeah, and Guadalajara is also good. I know people living there. They've been telling me they have 1 hour away from Ajijic. If you need a weekend lake vacation, just get away to the Lake Chapala.
Right.
Then you have an older town, the Taquepaque. Yeah, finally I got the name right. So it's only 20 minutes, and it's a small town, older town, but very nice to walk around.
Oh, yeah,
it's bigger than we thought. It's actually much bigger.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so usually in these interior towns, like especially Guadalajara, Mexico City,
and they also Guadalajara is closer to the West Coast beaches.
That's what they're after.
Right? Yeah, not only Puerto Vallarta, the surrounding beach city, beach towns.
Right,
yeah, right. Somewhere about 5 hours if you want to drive.
Right.
Of course, you can fly.
Yeah.
But the only thing is the hurricane season. It will also hit Guadalajara, especially in the central, the flooding part.
Sure.
But it depends where you live.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, things with bigger cities, and the central towns, they may offer you more things to do. But again, like we mentioned, you may have to deal with things like pollution, or there still are obviously the smaller towns, right? Like Ajijic, right? Or like some of those Puerto Mágicos you see around. And again, those are going to give you the nice weather, but then you have to sacrifice not so many things to do. Right? So again, it all depends on what your lifestyle is.
Yeah, it is.
Right? Do you want cool weather and lots of things to do? Okay, central, highland, bigger cities, Guadalajara, Mexico City. Or do you want a more laid-back style? Okay, Ajijic, Queretaro might be more suited to you.
Right. Or San Miguel de Allende. Right, don't forget that.
That's probably one of the most popular places in the central.
Right. But the thing is, for me, San Miguel de Allende really depends on your health condition. If you have challenges in your legs, you're gonna watch out that. That's very
Guanajuato. Right?
Guanajuato, and
very hilly.
Very hilly. Yeah, if you are not used to walk on the smaller
hills and cobblestone.
Cobblestones, yeah.
Which I think kind of brings us to another thing you need to consider if you're trying to choose where to live, which is your age.
Right.
Right. Lots of you tend to see more retired people kind of go to San Miguel de Allende. It's not so hilly.
Right.
So a place like Guanajuato, again, you're going to get the nice weather, but again, if you're older and you have issues with legs and walking, you may want to reconsider that.
Right. If some Mexican older people, they've been living there for whole life, they're used to it.
Right.
But for people, if you are from more flat area, you're going to consider that. Can you handle that?
Right. And then if you're younger, maybe middle age, you might prefer the beaches more, right? Because maybe you like to be more physically active, right? I'm sure you like to surf or go fishing or whatever.
Surfing, SUP,
right? Snorkeling,
anything you can do underwater.
Beach, right? That
exactly.
Entails, that might be more the lifestyle for you, which is great. And then there are places that are kind of like that little happy compromise, right? Where you kind of get good weather and the beach, like place like Cabo.
Cabo, they will talk about only September when Cabo's weather get not so good, but most of the time it's good.
Nice weather.
But you got to consider winter months, like February, the water is cold.
Sure, and I know the water can be kind of cold, for the most part year round.
And a lot of beach area is not swimmable. You're gonna watch out where you go, or where you stay.
Right, and pick only certain beaches. There are beaches where you can swim. You just have to find out where they are. And again, the names are escaping us right now as far as which beaches are, but they do exist. I know we've been there. We just heard, nope, you can't go swim in the beaches in Cabo.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of takes that. But as we've done more research after we left, we found there are beaches you can swim at. And then Christian, what do you think? You can make some good money in beach towns. Make money how?
Fishing,
or by maybe rentals and Airbnb.
Airbnb.
I'm curious what Christian may have to say about that. I'm assuming it's maybe through real estate. So where to live? Again, all kinds of choices. I know going back to forums and stuff, you always hear about Dave. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave. Hi, Dave. How are you?
Thank you for joining us. We appreciate that so much. Or saying,
we will still talk about,
the beach town.
where to live, where to choose to live in Mexico.
Right. I think a lot of times you hear people asking for suggestions, which I understand asking people for suggestions online. But then the only problem with that is you're going to get so many
that's true.
Responses. And so really the honest answer to where to live in Mexico is going to be, you have to look at what your needs are. Right? And that's the best answer.
Yeah.
Because what I think and what we need is going to be different for what anybody else out there needs. Right. And so my suggestion to you is going to be probably thinking from my perspective. And again, obviously, people are going to have different perspectives and needs. So you really need to sit down, do the research, get online.
Or go there, just to stay for 2 weeks. You can feel the vibe.
Yeah.
Can you imagine to stay there for a year or so?
Right. Yeah. And the longer you can stay there, the better, right? If you can stay there for a couple of weeks, great. If you can stay there for a couple of months, a month or two.
At least 1 month.
Right.
You maybe at least 20 days to 1 month.
Right. Yeah. I think because we mentioned this when we went to Queretaro. Was, the first 2 weeks, week or two, it still feels like the vacation. It's kind of, in our opinion, again, once you start hitting that third, fourth week, that's when it kind of starts feeling like you've already settled in.
Yeah.
The newness is kind of starting to wear off. Okay, I've already been down the mall going 7 times. I've already had the same little fish. Okay, I got it. Now it's, what is the daily life like? Okay, I don't want to eat out every day. Let's go to the market. Let's see how much the food is. So yeah, definitely, you need to take things like that into consideration when you're considering where to move.
Right.
Now, you decided where to move, right? Now, the question everyone asks once you decide to make that move to Mexico is, where do I live?
Yeah, of course, people got to consider safety.
Sure.
Also important.
Sure.
Things to do. If they have kids, what about the education? If they're elder people, they more consider the hospital, the medical
care.
Right.
But now, what I'm talking about is whether people rent or buy.
Oh, rent or buy. Now we go to the move on. Okay, sorry. Okay.
Christian, you can answer real quick. Beach cities I met will have my friends who work off tourism, and some from renting out. Sure. Yeah, I think beach areas, Christian, tend to be the more tourist areas, so there's definitely opportunity for money there.
Like the other day, we just had a conversation. I said, "Oh, we were looking at the beach in Oaxaca called Puerto Escondido.
Oh yeah.
It's on the west side of Huatulco.
Yeah.
So we said, oh, look at so many youth hostel there, workspace. Maybe we can look into the opportunity if we decided to stay there. Maybe something we could do
down the line.
Yeah, down the line, or just something like related to what Christian said. Have a house, made it different rooms, rented to backpackers, so they can work, like short-term stay.
Right. And that can be maybe
something
when we're older.
Yeah, no, not now. I'm too busy with everything else.
Yeah, but again, it could be definitely a good idea. There is lots of opportunity in the tourism aspects of things in beach communities.
And Airbnb 100%. Are pretty open here. Like there's no really restriction. In the US, they started to restrict.
Right. Like and who knows what that'll be like down the line.
Who knows? Right.
And again, I know people have their feelings about Airbnbs and short-term rentals as far as how it helps and hurts the local economies.
Yeah, right.
But again, as of now, for those people who are into real estate, Airbnb is a very viable option.
Or just a long-term rental.
Right. So now you moved to Mexico, like I said.
Oh, rent or buy.
Rent or buy, right? This is the age-old question. And I think for most people, maybe buying is not an option, right?
Yeah.
But it could be.
It can be if you really think it's a deal. You have some cash, you're tired of renting, you decided to stay there for long term. Sure. I mean, if the price is good.
Right. But I think the number one thing most people are going to do is rent.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And because renting is easy and it gives you a lot more flexibility, especially when you first move to Mexico. Because, I've moved around. I've lived in China as well, and even here in Mexico, and I know you've lived other places. You're always going to have those people who come and they're excited. They've made the move, right? I'm here. I'm in Mexico. I'm in pick a country. I'm in Costa Rica, whatever. And then 1 week, 1 month, 2 months, they're gone. Right? They couldn't handle it for whatever reason. Right? So you want that flexibility of renting to be able to escape back to where you need to go to, right? And it's going to end, or even if you do like the city, it's going to help you find different areas, right? And I think a lot of times a suggestion that we've heard, we've never done it personally, when you move to a new city is maybe stay at a few Airbnbs around town, right? To kind of get a feel for an area, because you are locked in to a rental agreement for the most part. Once you sign that contract, so you may not like that area, and you may be stuck there for a year. Right? So yeah, move around a little bit if you can. Short-term rentals. Find what area you like. Find what city you like. Right.
Yeah, you just don't know.
Right. And before you make that decision of signing, for a lease. Right. Now, the issue with leasing, because there are some issues, and I think that's why we ended up even buying a house.
That's our issue. It really depends on the cities, I think. Like Queretaro is one of the city. Really depends on your luck.
Right.
The first one we got in the Queretaro Central was easy. They don't need the insurance.
Right.
They don't care if we're foreigners or residents.
Right.
So we got it.
We're fortunate, but a lot of places
They
didn't,
know,
right? They wanted what is called. They want you to be a resident. They want the visa jurídica.
Yes.
Which is pretty much like an insurance for the landlord and for the tenants. But again, they won't even look at you if you're not a resident, right? And so when we first got here, we weren't residents, and I know people are going to have their opinions about that as well. But we got a residency pretty quick. So, if you don't have that, it's going to be very difficult to rent, or you're going to have to put more money down, right? If you may have to put a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 month, upfront payment. They may ask for a larger deposit. So there are ways around it, right? But you just don't. You're going to limit yourself, right? Some people won't even look at you. I said, if you're not a resident and you don't have these things.
Yeah, even you offer, I pay 6 months at front.
Right.
They will say no.
No. Right?
No.
They'd rather not. So you got to take that into consideration. I know, like here in Mexico City, they want you to have a aval, which is somebody, and I don't remember the whole phrase, but it pretty much comes down to they want like a cosigner, somebody who lives in the city and somebody who owns property.
Right.
That's kind of be your cosigner. And so for a lot of people who move to Mexico City, again, that's not even an option, right? Because they don't know anybody.
Yeah.
Now there are just like I mentioned, and like a lot of things in Mexico, there are ways to work around it, and again, that are still within the law. I'm not saying to do anything illegal; it's all within the law, right? There are even specialized companies who I've seen driving around, like saying, like no aval, like no problem, like no problem, right? And they're kind of focusing towards foreigners, right? Or people who outside of Mexico City who are moving to Mexico City. So there are ways you can work around it. Again, it just makes it a little bit more difficult, right? So these are things you may have to consider when renting, right? Again, it's not just, I like this place, I have 1 month deposit, let's go, right? Like in the US. So for some people, and again, this is going to be a smaller amount of people, sometimes buying is the better option, right? But again, that has its own hassles as well.
Yeah.
Like, what was our process like when we bought? Remember?
When we bought, not much issue, I think. Oh, I think the issue is we didn't work with any realtor that time. We just walked to all the pre-sale, all new constructions.
Right.
So we just walked to any sales office, and that time we didn't have residence card yet.
Right.
But I think 99% of salesperson
don't care.
No, they told us, I don't think you can get it. You can buy.
Yeah.
Like, let me call my manager.
Yeah.
And they called and said, no, they don't know. I don't think you can make it. Somehow make it so difficult until we walk to another sales office. That person said, sure, foreigners can buy it.
Yeah, no problem.
No problem. You just got to pay some money, go through the attorney process.
Right. Just like anybody buying a house with it. It was nothing special for us. It wasn't anything extra work for us. It was the same process as anybody buying a house in Queretaro would be.
Yeah. Another thing is the closing cost can be high. There's
closing cost.
I think I think average people talk about it. I don't remember our detailed number. Somewhere, let's say 8 to 10%, because you're gonna pay a huge amount of the property tax at the closing.
Right.
So that's different from in the US. You pay every year.
Right.
But at the closing, you don't pay the big amount, about maybe 6%, 8% of the tax.
Right.
But at the front. But that's a big part of the closing
and
cost.
There's extra fees, right? There's for the attorneys, the notaries,
right?
Which are pretty much like the lawyers here in Mexico. You have to kind of pay all those fees, which of course is expected, right? But the process itself, I know if you first decide you want the property, I know the small down payment that they're asking is usually pretty small.
That was normally a small percentage.
Like 5,000 pesos, 10,000 pesos for us?
To hold it.
Right.
Yeah. Then they have a payment schedule.
Right.
Yeah.
So like to actually hold the house and take it off the market, maybe 5,000-10,000 pesos, maybe a little bit more depending on the value of the house, but not much considering the whole value of the house. And then they kind of have you pay like monthly over time, right? And a lot of times for pre-construction, it just depends on how far off is your house from being ready. Because if it's a year and a half away from being ready, then you can definitely put smaller chunks over time, right? But I know, like for us, it was a short time. It was only a couple of months away. Luckily, at that time, we had the money in hand, so we were able to purchase the house pretty quickly. And we had to pay for it in a quicker amount of time, right? And I do remember one thing that also they told us when we went to closing was that's when we had our kind of friend help us was if you're a foreigner, you have to have like a Mexican national there to help you translate.
Oh, right.
And I think what we were told was that's the law. Even if you come and you speak Spanish, again, you have to have a Mexican national there who can translate for you.
Right.
Now, we don't know if this is true in every single state, but this is definitely true in Queretaro.
Right.
So we had to have somebody sit there and help us translate the closing. This is what you're signing. This is what this means. This is this clause, and kind of go through the whole process, explain to you in Spanish, and then explain to you in English. So again, that can be a little bit. It can make the closing take a little bit longer.
Yeah,
right?
I think another thing people need to consider if you buy a what's called a second-hand house, not brand new construction. You need to consider if there's no lien on it, if the deed is true on the name. Right. This you need not only the realtor, you also need a real estate attorney to make sure they do the lien search, do the title search.
Right.
But this is very common in the U.S. But here, some people just, okay, that's fine. I just know the owner. Because here, what I know is some older building, they've been generation and generation past, and you don't know how many people's name are on the title.
Right.
So you better work with the attorney to make sure everything's clear than before the closing.
Right. Right.
Yeah. If it's a new construction, you're gonna make sure not just to see they show you a nice video. That's the plan. You got to make sure that company is legit.
Right. It's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. That they have a reputation of finishing the buildings they've started.
In Queretaro, I haven't heard any bad stories, but I do see some people post in some other states. People pay the down payment and some issue with the money. Right. They didn't get a loan, and of course they stopped it, and you lost your down payment. It was just whole dream broke.
Right. I think where I've noticed most or more of that happen again in my limited states. In coastal areas, in beach areas. I think that's where you hear a lot of these more of the horror stories, like where condo projects didn't get completed. They might be smaller upstart companies, and like you said, maybe one bad thing goes, and then there goes their money, and they can't complete. Sorry.
Yeah.
So absolutely make sure you do the background check on the builder. Make sure they're reputable. Make sure they've been around for years.
Yeah.
I know like the one that we bought was Kaisa.
Yeah, we know it's legit. They already built so many neighborhoods already there.
And we heard from other people as well.
Yeah.
Kaisa, they've been around for a while. They do good work. So we felt pretty comfortable with that.
So. We haven't seen one area in Zakia over there.
Not be completed.
It's just keep growing.
And it's the same kind of builder. Like, just to throw some out there, we've seen Kaisa, we've seen Riscos. Nazar.
There's so many,
Anyway, and those are the two big ones we know.
But they also say some company, like the Kaisa salesperson told us, I don't want to mention any name here, but it said, I've been to their construction area. They use very cheap. Yeah, I saw how they build it.
Yeah, they don't use as much rebar back in the columns to kind of for stabilization of the building itself. Right.
Right.
I think Dave, you mentioned something about that.
Okay.
It says, I'm surprised by the lack of quality residential construction in Mexico compared to the U.S. Any tips on finding property inspectors?
I don't know.
Actually, no, because as we mentioned, we went through like a new build, and I don't think that's.
Maybe there's some service here if you buy a not new construction.
Yeah, I would like to believe so. But,
there should be an industry like that to help people.
So if anybody's watching now or watches, maybe down the line once this is posted, if you've ever had experience with an inspector, or if does that even exist? We'd love that information, because that is a great question.
Right.
We never really thought about that, because you're right. In the U.S., an inspection is always part of the process.
Yeah.
Right. I think new build or like a resale. I think there always has to be an inspection.
Yeah.
And I think mainly because you're dealing with a bank, right?
True.
Because when you buy cash, like when we've done back home, for investment properties, you can waive the inspection if you're buying cash, right? But again, 99% of purchases in the U.S. are probably through the bank, and banks are going to require an inspection.
Right. Maybe here is the same. We don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah, because we didn't get a loan, so maybe we didn't do that process. I think most realtors should know.
I like to believe so. They didn't tell us. Good question.
Yeah, very good.
I hope somebody can answer that for us, because I think a lot of people who may be considering purchasing a house, that may be something to consider. Right? You do want an inspection, make sure the quality that you're about to put a lot of money into, make sure the quality is there. Right?
Yeah, it's important. Question. Yeah.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about renting for yourself, buying. Now, we are a little bit in a unique position where we've actually kind of been through all four sides of real estate transactions, or almost through all four real estate. We've rented for ourselves. We've bought for ourselves.
We leased it.
Right. Once we decided to move to Mexico, we leased our property in Queretaro. So we've been on the landlord side of leasing a property, and due to unforeseen circumstances, and we do kind of feel a little bit bad about this. So very soon after we rented the property in Queretaro, we are actually now selling the property.
I don't mind to share why we decided to sell it. The people may maybe you can just sell first. Why you lease it first for short term, and now you want to sell it? Because
our intention was not to sell it at all.
Because we will refinance a house in Houston, and then we find out all the closing costs and all the interest rates. It's crazy. They literally give us about 10%, and there is some penalty if we pay back in the 5 years or something like that.
Right.
And the closing cost is literally $6,000 something.
Right. Points that they're
and in the end, and the points is super high. And in the end, I feel like, no, I just sell this house here. Why sit on 10%?
It wasn't. The numbers we were told at the beginning
is different.
Changed drastically from the numbers that they were told we were going to have to close with. And at that point, it really stopped making sense to do.
Yeah.
Right. So we came back and we looked at our situation again. That was for us, and we decided, that it was best to sell the property here in Mexico. Right?
Yeah.
So, and again, very unfortunately, we had just leased it out, on that side, but that's the way the situation rolled and just happened.
Right.
And we've already talked to the tenant, and we're paying our dues. We can talk about that as well, because that's part of the contract.
Yeah, because he said he doesn't feel comfortable to keep showing the house to any buyer down the way, unless they are buying it with the tenant as an investment property.
Right.
But we cannot just limit our buyer.
Right, because here the tenant has the right to deny access.
Right.
They don't even have to let anybody see the house at all. So when you're the landlord and you give the house to somebody, and you decide to either rent, maybe they give you their 1 month or 2 months notice that they're going to move out, they don't have to let anybody see the house. For the next possible future tenants. Or if you decide to sell it, they don't have to let anybody go in and look at all. They can just flat out deny you. And again, as the owner, you have no recourse. That's just the way it is.
Unless you change the contract at the beginning, put on it.
Yeah, but that's right.
Right.
But that's not standard.
Not standard, that's for sure.
And another thing you have to consider, and again, we've dealt with this, which is also different from the U.S., is that once you sign a contract and lease, there are penalties if you break the lease on either side. Right, which I know people knew. Oh yeah, you give up your deposit. Yes, you have to either give up your deposit if you are the renter, right? Plus, you have to pay 1 or 2 months of rent as a penalty, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing if you're the landlord. If you break the lease, unfortunately we are, we have to give back the deposit, obviously, and we have to pay 2 months penalty. And so he has to move out in 30 days, and we have to pay him back 2 months of worth of rent. So it's a penalty that we have to pay. So again, that's very different from back in the U.S. Usually in the U.S., you break the lease, they might at the worst take the deposit, and that's it, right? Not 2 more months on top of that.
Yeah.
Right. So again, that's something to consider. If you are, again, whether you are going to be the one leasing a property, or you happen to buy a property and want to lease it out. If you break it, you're gonna have to pay a penalty.
Right. Okay. Now we go to the next topic: sell the property.
Sell the property.
It takes forever.
Right. Well, let's look at a couple of questions.
Okay.
Or you want to talk about selling?
Oh no, you can finish this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Christian, he asked, you want to make sure your building can survive an earthquake. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, we missed a couple. Actually, also, I'm going to go up to Holo. I'm sorry about that. We missed you a moment ago. It says, do you live in Polanco? No, we don't live in Polanco. I'm not really sure where we live. Neighborhood. I think we already shared it.
Oh yeah, we talk about it in some other videos.
Yeah, we live in Napolis. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't live in Polanco.
No.
And that kind of has to go with Christian's question, right?
Yeah, it's true.
You want to make sure that you can survive an earthquake, which by the way is good to be prepared by having a backpack with important documents. Good point. With all the important documents at hand and a hard hat and provisioned rations. Okay, good point. You're right. Have like a little what do they call it? Like a rucksack, right? And you're ready to go out the door just in case. And that is something that we found that we've actually talked about in our other video as well.
Yeah.
If you go to Google Maps or Google and you type, because Mexico, what makes Mexico so dangerous is that a big portion of the central part of Mexico City was built on the ancient lake bed of the Texcoco, right?
Texcoco.
And if you, I forget exactly what we put in for the search, but if you put in like ancient lake Texcoco overlay Mexico City, something like that, you can actually find maps where they kind of overlay the two, right? They have the Lex Texcoco and they put modern day Mexico City over it. So you can see the parts of Mexico City that are on top of the ancient lake. And I think those areas tend to be more affected by earthquakes from what we understand. And I know two of the very popular areas, for foreigners are Condesa and Roma, and Roma Norte. And those areas can be very severely affected by earthquakes, and they were built on top of the lake bed.
Yeah.
Right? Where we are off the lake bed. And I think, places like Polanco, which I heard are also pretty safe for earthquakes.
And the Coyoacan is safe.
Coyoacan, right? Because they are away from the lake bed.
Yeah, they're over the land.
Right. Yeah. They're on what was solid land back there. So they're not going to be as affected. Obviously, they're still going to be, there may still be damage. There still may be some catastrophe. But I think you are negating some of that risk by doing a quick search. Try to mess with the keywords, put it in, but you can find it, right? Which is the ancient lake over under what Mexico City is today. And you may want to consider that because, like I said, Condesa and Roma Norte, those are very popular areas for expats. A lot of people who come here, they probably just move here without even thinking about that. And it's been 10 plus years since the last big earthquake, but you never know when the next big one is coming. And again, that is a big expat hotspot. Right?
And they were also talk about if you want to stay in La Condesa, Roma Norte, try to stay in the newer, maybe not brand new, but newer buildings.
Right.
But sometimes here the building is like, is that really new construction or they redo it?
I think a lot of times they redo it.
Yeah, that's the thing. But you cannot consider those apartment buildings as new buildings, right? You just don't know.
You don't know.
Yeah, it's we saw a lot of buildings here.
Being
I think.
Redone,
yeah, like even where we stayed.
Put up a new facade.
Yeah.
Right? So it makes the front of the building look like it's brand new, right? But they're just kind of putting newer, like a decorative brick.
Right, like I think one of the apartments we went to when we were looking for our apartment. From the picture, I said, "Oh, it's a new building." Once I walk in, I said, "That's not a new building."
Yeah, they were still finishing it. You could tell it was an older building underneath.
So that's one of those cases.
Right. So you gotta
it's very popular. Yeah.
Let's see, Reese, the Logan. Thanks for watching, Reese. We appreciate it. Says, pardon me if this is off topic of the day, but I've been meaning to ask if you have been to Guadalajara enough to be able to talk about the differences between Guadalajara and Mexico City. I guess the short answer is probably not enough.
Yeah, we stayed in the Guadalajara only for a week. Yeah, so we get some idea. We've been to different areas.
Right.
But to really compare, of course, Mexico City is bigger scale.
And
besides that,
and we've only been to Mexico City maybe, like I said, 5 weeks. Now, granted, we did visit a few times before, but normally just for short periods. So again, the short answer is, do we have enough information?
Maybe not. So, yeah.
Again, so really, it is more of our impression of Guadalajara as compared to a little bit more deeper experience here in Mexico City.
Right? What about the weather?
Again, we were there for a week. And again, I think some of the things we say about Guadalajara is things we've read about Guadalajara. So I just want to be clear and transparent about that. When we talk about weather and things like that in Guadalajara, it's something we have not experienced. It's things that we've done research on.
I did the research. I watched also others YouTube videos about Guadalajara. I know one lady, she stayed in the Guadalajara Central. Then during the summer season, which is the hurricane flooding season, it's got flooded and electricity was gone for a while. Later, she moved to suburbs. Then she feels much better, nice gated communities. So there's no more flooding issue, no more electricity issues.
Okay.
And I know some people live there. They said they live in like Zapotan. Yeah, and it's only 1 hour away from Chapala Lake Chapala area. Right. So it's easy getaway. It's a 1 hour. It's easy to get there.
Right.
Yeah. And then so I found that Guadalajara is very walkable. They got its own charm. Yes.
Yeah. And it does have its own charm for sure.
I think it's warmer than here.
I think in general it's going to be a little bit warmer, right? Again, we're talking about seasonal averages, things we've seen online.
Yeah, and also just above sea level. Here is
higher,
2,600.
Right, and I think like again things that
meters
and things that are apparent are things like the greenery. It's much greener here in Mexico City than it is Guadalajara. It is green, but I think it's just greener and bigger trees here in Mexico City. So it's little small things like that.
I don't know if Riz has been there or not. Maybe check it out by yourself.
Yeah. Or maybe he's from Guadalajara.
I don't know. I don't know.
You can let us know, Reese.
Yeah.
Are you from there? Have you been there enough? Maybe you can give us a little bit better insight. If that's something, if you're asking for your own personal gain as far as to go there, or are you from there? Let us know. And again, maybe you can help us out, and we'll try to help you out as best we can if you're asking for information.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I heard that dog food is expensive there. Dog food.
I think so. We have 2 little schnauzers.
Right.
Yeah, I think the price maybe more or less similar. Depends on which brand you buy. Right. The one we always buy, it's an imported brand.
Yeah, it's a pedigree. We don't.
Yeah, it's not nothing fancy.
Kind of a mid-level standard American brand. The pedigree, kind of yellow bag. What do we pay for that on average? $6 something normally, right?
Maybe.
So it's definitely more expensive.
I think so.
400 to 600 pesos, maybe.
Yeah, somewhere maybe 500 or 600 peso.
So you're looking about $25, $30 for 12 kilos. 10 to 12 kilos, which is maybe about 25 pounds.
But I mean, the prices also varies. Even in the U.S., depends on which supermarket you go.
Yeah, but not that much. I mean, we never paid $25, $20, $30 for.
We did. I think it was 25 we paid. It was something like for the big bag. Yeah, HEB.
That was like 50 pounds. That was like almost.
Oh, that was true. That's much heavier.
Right. It was almost double the size.
Yeah, it's all in the U.S. The size just big, and the price about $25.
Yeah, so I would say like for a 12,
I think so.
Like a 12 kilo bag, which is going to be about 25 pounds, give or take. You're going to pay that. You can almost buy a 50-pound bag in the U.S. So yes, I would say it's going to be more expensive.
Yeah,
here.
if you just to choose some imported brands are more expensive, like any other imported. Even cereals.
I took our dog to the vet the other day, and what's that popular, very expensive brand? Not the Blue Diamond. I can't think of it right now, but it was crazy. I know it's a very high end brand, and for like it might have been like an 8 kilo bag. It was like 3,000 pesos.
Yeah, can be.
It was a very high end brand.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's can be very
but the thing is, if you have dog here, the vet, if you just grooming, those are cheaper. Or the dog hotel, it's much cheaper here.
Yeah, and the vet fees are much cheaper.
Yeah, the vet fee is cheaper.
Which also Holo mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Again, I took our dog to an emergency vet at night.
Oh, that night.
And
gosh.
Just the normal fee as compared to the emergency fee was only 20 pesos more. I think it was like $3.30 for the first time consultation, right?
Yeah.
And it was $3.50 if you took them at night. So again, you're looking like $17, $18. Take your dog to an initial visit.
An X-ray, how much?
Oh, right. Let's just talk about the initial visit. You go to a vet in the U.S. like we did in Houston, just to walk in the door, just for an appointment, you're going to pay what, $60, $80, $100?
I think easily.
Right? Just again, here you're paying $18.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah. I'm sure it's gone up a little bit. I'm sure it's gone up quite a bit in the U.S. But our dog had a scare. Again, just very quickly talking about vet care here. So for her emergency visit, again, she took X-rays again for the night visit, and for like maybe 5 medicines and a shot, the total was only 1,500 pesos, which is, again, you're looking maybe $80. Again, I'm guesstimating here about $80. But again, take a pet to an emergency vet care after hours in the U.S., which we've done as well, like with our dog.
Yeah.
And to pay for all of that for $80, again, that won't even get you in the door at a regular vet, much less an emergency vet at night.
Yeah, not include any medicine, X-ray, anything else.
Yeah, just to walk in.
Yeah, it was
You walk
crazy.
in the door, $200 probably just to walk in.
And in the US, it's always, you don't have money to pay for it. Here's the credit card. You can apply for
you can apply for this. Yeah,
sure.
the pet care or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and again, it was very good care. I would take my dog there again just for normal visits and stuff and medicine. Yeah, the pet and vet care here is much better.
Even for grooming,
250 pesos.
Yeah, 250 pesos a dog.
Right, and that's for schnauzers. So that's going to include their shaving and hair trimming and everything else that goes along with dog grooming. For 250 pesos. Again, that's what?
Maybe 13. I don't know, somewhere
$13,
there.
$14. Again.
Yeah, in the US, easily 45.
Yeah, go to a pet room in the US.
Easily.
And ask me if you can pay $15 for a total pet grooming on schnauzers, and
No way.
they'll probably laugh you out the door.
Just the labor here is much lower.
Yeah, much better, right?
And also, we asked the vet here for dog hotel.
I forgot the price.
It was like 200 peso each.
Yeah, a night. So if you want to board your dog, again, that's 200 pesos a piece. Again, you're looking at $11, $12 to board your dog per night. And again, I know my mother has done the dog boarding back in the U.S. and she always complains about how expensive it is.
Oh, wow.
So you're definitely not going to get $10, $12 a night for a dog in a dog hotel back home.
Yeah.
At all. A good question. So again, we appreciate everything all the questions being asked. So going back, I guess, to our last thing, was selling a house.
Oh, we already talked about it. It takes longer to sell the house. Okay, you can continue. I think I said a little bit about it.
Yeah. So kind of going back to our last thing about real estate, when you sell a house, right? Again, selling a house here in the U.S., here in Mexico is, again, obviously is going to be very different than selling a house in the U.S. One of the first things, like Landy just mentioned, is going to be the time or the days on the market.
Yeah.
Like on average.
What she told us, our realtor.
I forgot what she told
6 months to 1 year, or 4 to 6 months.
I think she told us maybe 3 to 6 months because we actually did price our house a little bit lower. Right?
True.
So we're trying to sell it a little bit faster.
Yeah.
So we put it a little bit below market value to try to gain some interest. But on average, you're going to be looking at maybe 6 months. On average, maybe to a little bit more, up to a year, to kind of sell a house. And again, there's always exceptions. We know somebody in Queretaro,
Day one,
or the first person who went to go see his house he bought. But again,
we don't know the price.
Well, it was definitely more than ours because it was a custom home.
No, I know. I mean, how low he sold should be.
Yeah, we don't know that.
Yeah, how much percentage lower?
I think it was in a very nice area, and it was a custom home. Right?
True.
So again, I think those were two things that worked in his favor. So again, there are always the exceptions, but like I said, expect 6 months to a year to sell a house. Again, in the U.S., depending on the market, and I know the market is shifting in the U.S. You could sell a house, during decent times, within a month or two, maybe. Right?
Yeah, if you price right.
If you price right, within a month. It's always about the pricing, right? That's why you need a good realtor. But within a month or two, you should sell your house in most parts of the U.S. I mean, I know we're generalizing here a little bit. We know our experiences in Texas, but I can't imagine more than a month or two to sell your house. So expect the house to sit on the market a little bit longer. Right? And like I said, or as we mentioned before, with a tenant, you may just want to sell the house without anybody in it. Don't think about renting it because here tenants have more rights than the owners. So again, you might get a nice one, and they might say, "Sure, you can show the house while I'm here or while I'm not," but they do have the right to completely just say, "Nope, you can't show the house while I'm living here." And so we're still kind of in the process of experiencing, the total selling process, and so we can definitely bring you more about that in the future once the transaction is complete.
And one more thing is, as foreigner sell the house here, we're gonna pay 30% on any appreciation we make.
Right. Unless you overseas.
Unless let me finish it. Unless you stay in the house not as a residential, not for any business or renting it for continually 3 years.
Right.
Of course, in the middle you can leave. Maybe I don't know the details about
Right.
3 years. But we also heard that's the 3 years count from the day you got your
RFC.
which you haven't got it.
Right.
So
I tried to, but anyway.
So anyway, so I don't think our situation will fit that category anyway.
Right.
So and we don't make so much appreciation anyway. So whatever.
So yeah, we've already talked about that ourselves.
So
We're
whatever.
like 30% of not so much is not that big of a deal
Yeah,
for our case. But again, as somebody who may have been
True.
here maybe
Mhm.
10 or 15, 20 years,
Yeah.
again, it could affect them a
Right.
little bit different,
That's for
especially
sure.
if they did decide to use it as
Yeah.
a rental at some point.
Mhm.
So again, these are things you may need to consider. We don't know all the answers.
Right. We
but-
don't know all the details.
Right.
If you need to sell your house, maybe consult
and
your
maybe you rented it for 2 years in
CPA
the
or
middle,
some.
or
Yeah.
a realtor, right?
Yeah.
Make sure these are good questions to ask as far as what you're going to have to pay for appreciation, right? For capital gains, like a
Yeah.
capital gains tax.
Right. Capital gain.
So like as I said, as we go through the process more, we'll definitely keep you up to date as far as
Right.
how that process went, and again, so we're still in the process of selling. What else? Angela. Hey, Angela.
Hi, Angela.
I said, what about where is it best to buy drinkable water versus water filters? Any brands? That's a good question because we've thought about buying water filters here when we came to Mexico City.
Right.
I know most people tend to still buy the garrafones, which are the big like 20-liter bottles, and they'll have a pump, or whether it's hand or electric, and that's how most people get the water, and it's probably the most inexpensive way, short term. We've looked into some water filters, or the ones that are kind of like reusable, like containers, those canteens, which they kind of use like clay, and other, so it's like a you can fill it up with tap water, and then it kind of naturally filters it through the bottom, and you can kind of just use it all the time. It's been a while since we looked at them, but I think just for the basic like small one, was it maybe like 10,000-15,000? Remember?
Forgot how much. It's not.
They're not cheap.
I think maybe. Yeah, it really depends on the size.
On the size.
Yeah, you can check on where we checked.
I think
Not
it's called
Amazon.
Eco Filter, if I'm not mistaken. Eco Filter.
Yeah, with very pretty porcelain.
Right, they're kind of this clay
Yeah,
porcelain.
clay.
And again, those are popular because you just fill them up with tap water, and then it just naturally filters it, and you can just drink it. And I think the interior kind of clay pot lasts about a year or 2 years, and you got to exchange. And I remember those weren't as bad. But the setup is a little bit more pricey. Then, of course, you have like the in-sink filters.
Yeah.
And again, I honestly don't. I want to say maybe between 15 and 20,000
easily
on the bottom end. Again, there's just like everything. There's always going to be different levels of water filters.
The cheaper one I also saw some plastic one. You have the
kind of like the
filter. But it's a bigger size.
Right.
10 liter, some 20 liter. This can be a little bit cheaper. But the thing is, you're gonna keep changing the filter. It's also not cheap.
Right. Yeah.
Each set maybe somewhere 1,000, depends on the size.
Right. So again,
go to check on the Mercado Libre. Or Amazon. They also have some.
Yeah, and I know like there's a company, Rotoplas, which is kind of what we use in San Rafael, which is it looks like a big coffee maker, like it's long, and it just has that's connected directly to the sink.
Right.
And
those
it has the filters inside. And again, those are like ionized and add extra elements in there and stuff. And I think those are also like 25,000. But again, it maybe long run, it might be better. Right?
For convenience.
For convenience, you never have to carry these big 20-liter jugs up and downstairs.
If you're a woman, maybe it's too heavy to carry that.
So that's what we still use. So again, we can speak personally to that.
That's his workout.
Yeah. that's how I do my farmer walk and deadlift.
Yeah.
I bought 2 this morning, and they are more expensive here in Mexico City than they are in Queretaro. We have one that's Ciel and one that's Bonafont, and buying the 2 together was 114 pesos. So let's call it $6.
And if you're a lady, you don't want to carry them, you can always call. Yeah, they can deliver to your door.
Right, and I think the price is pretty much the same for delivery, so you're not paying any bit more. You just like a lot of things in Mexico, they might tell you a time and date that they're going to come by, and maybe they do, maybe they don't. So the only bad thing about that is that
the timing.
And you don't plan anything while those guys are planning to come to your house because they might show up and they may not. And if you have to go somewhere, just like Murphy's Law, the second you go step out to do something, that's the time they come. And if you miss the delivery, well, you missed the delivery until next time.
Yeah. Okay. She had another question.
Sure. Also, what do
travelers do? Can you put?
Can you buy a typical water
can
filter
you
bottle
buy-
or just buy small bottles of water while you're walking around?
Yeah, you can do that. You can buy the small one, like 5 liter. I saw a lot of people just carry the smaller.
Yeah,
water
which we've
bottle.
done, like when
Yeah.
we've gone on vacation, right? We'll just buy the 5 liter ones,
Right.
And of course, then you can buy maybe 1 or 2, like the smaller, like half liter
Uh-huh.
or liter bottles, like we kind of do.
Yeah.
When you go out, and yeah, you can just fill those up as easy,
Right.
And that's an easy way to kind of make your water portable.
Mhm.
And even water is very inexpensive here. Even if you just go to the store, like an OXXO or 7-Eleven,
Yeah.
you can buy a liter of water for about 12 pesos. Give or take. It's gonna vary from
Yeah.
brand and city, but let's say 10 to 15 pesos, you can buy a liter of water. So less than $1.
Yeah, for traveler, this is the best way.
Yeah,
You
and it's
don't
gonna
need.
be
You
cold.
don't. It would be cold. Yeah, you have options.
Probably.
Yeah,
always,
not
but
every
probably.
place. Not for the big bottle.
Yeah. No, right, for the small ones.
Small one for sure. Everywhere you find it.
But I'm saying sometimes the fridges aren't so working properly. So that's why they mostly get cold. Yeah, no problem, Angela. Any other questions? We're happy to answer.
Wanna. Okay.
Oh, life straw. Oh yeah, Reese. We take a life straw. Pretty pricey when traveling.
What is the life straw?
So is a life straw? Is that like a Camelback? I'm assuming that's the bags you put in the straw.
Oh, those like the jogger.
Right. I don't know if that's exactly the same. I don't know if you can verify that, Reese, or not. What's it called? The life straw? Is that kind of like a Camelback?
When traveling.
When traveling.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, that could be good too, right? Just carry on your bag and
Yeah.
on your back and just go. A filter.
It's a brand.
Yeah, I think no. Let me guess again. It is like a straw, but it has a little filter in the middle of the straw, right? So you can use it to kind of suck. I think, but it has a filter in it.
Oh, I have no idea.
Am I right on that? Again. So you can drink. Yeah, you can drink it.
Oh wow!
So it's just a straw.
I have no idea.
It has a little filter built in. Okay, so life straw. That's another something
wow,
that you can
okay.
look into.
Yeah.
And again, I know different parts of the world, may have different levels of water cleanliness, Mexico included. So that could be a good option to always, if you want to be extra safe, maybe use the life straw.
Yep.
Good point. Maybe look into that later. All right. So, yeah. What else?
The transportation.
Right.
If people move to Mexico, should you bring your own car or rent a car here or buy a car here, or you don't need a car?
Or public transportation,
Yeah,
walking.
Right.
This is kind of our last topic for the day. And of course, we'll answer questions just as we've been doing. If other questions come up, again, whether on topic or off topic, doesn't matter. We're just kind of throwing some things out there. We're just kind of talking about some basic things I think sometimes people find interesting to talk about. But or if you have other ideas, anybody who may be watching, we'd love to hear ideas for maybe future live topics. Again, things we can kind of talk about and give you a little bit more input.
Right.
So winding up, we're talking about transportation.
Yeah.
Right? Now,
so what did we do?
Well,
we sold our car and we bought
sold our
one
car
here.
in the US and we ended up buying a car here in Queretaro. Right? That was our personal experience. That's what we've done. Now,
Pro and cons.
Pro and cons. Well, also even the process. I'll talk about that.
Okay.
I'll talk about that lady who starts with a B also and what she said about it. But the process. So we sold our car back in the U.S. and we ended up deciding to buy a car here in Mexico.
Oh, it's not about we sold the car. Our car was on the lease, so we have to end it.
Again, we broke the lease and turned it in. You're right. So yeah,
right, that was the
didn't have any
case.
money for that. But we came and we ended up buying a car. And we bought the car
And at the
maybe
beginning,
about 6 months
and
into
we
it.
at the beginning in Queretaro, we didn't even think about to buy a car.
No.
We thought maybe we live in Central, we don't need a car. We just get a scooter.
Right.
But later on, we found, oh, I think we need a car.
Right.
Even we already stay in the Central.
Right. I was gonna say about 6 months in is when we decided to buy a car. Maybe a little bit less, and we ended up buying a little bit. It was like a used car, but it was like a used car that was a kind of a personal lot car, where again, like where the owner could use it. So it only had like 22 kilometers on it, but it was technically a used car, so we got a pretty good deal on it.
Yeah.
It was pretty much like brand new. You remember what we paid for it?
I think,
250.
yeah, somewhere
220?
there. 250 maybe.
220,
Yeah.
250,000 pesos for what's called a Chevy Onyx, right? It is a Mexican or it's a Latin American platform. You can't find that car in the U.S. So I think that's why it was a pretty decent price, on top of the fact that it was used. But again, for us, it ended up being a good decision, especially living in Querétaro, for a few reasons. One, again, we like to travel, right? And we like to kind of move around, and having a car offers you that flexibility and offers you that little bit more freedom, and also having a young child.
Yeah.
Right? If we want, at that time, Louie was just barely over a year. So we had our car, we bought a car seat, and when we also had a couple of bad experiences with Uber.
Oh,
Querétaro,
yes.
where
Horrible.
They kept canceling on us.
Yeah.
And these are all minor inconveniences. We understand that these aren't big inconveniences. But so sometimes waiting for an Uber could be a pain, or sometimes having Uber or Didi cancel on you can be a pain. Or having to go on a bus on a bus company's schedule if you want to go travel.
True.
Right? With a car, it's whenever I'm ready to go, I can go. If I need to get somewhere, I can go. Right.
Yeah.
And again, we can put a proper car seat, and we could put Louie in there.
Yeah, especially with the baby, it's always a car seat issue, how we carry it. We call Uber there, then I'm going to carry it all the way.
Right.
In San Miguel, what?
Right. And right, carry the car seat with us.
That's the issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or take the child not in the car seat, which a lot of people do in Mexico.
Yeah, but he was only one.
He was still very young, but people still see very young babies in cars here in Mexico that are not buckled up. Very common occurrence. So if you're new to Mexico and you see small children that are not in car seats, that's just kind of the way it is here. Yes, some parents do, but you do see a lot of kids and babies, like very young babies, where parents just hold them, or they put them in the car and buckle them up, and that's it. So just be prepared for that cultural difference.
Right.
But so again, the car for us was the way to go. It just offered us a lot more things: ease of travel, our freedom of our own schedule.
Yeah.
And it just made it a little bit easier to move around. Now, the process itself, again, some wonderful person online told us that you cannot buy a car if you are not a resident of Mexico, right? And of course, I was like, well, that's not my question. I'm asking, how do you get a car? Because I've heard people who don't have residency. And so the way it ended up happening was we ended up going to a dealership, because we figured a dealership would know how to do it and how to handle this. Again, just like a lot of things in Mexico, there may be loopholes, and again, but these are all legal loopholes, right? These are things that, again, car dealership, salesmen, managers were all involved in, and so we ended up there. Yeah, no, there was no problem. You can buy a car here in Mexico. Now, again, laws are always changing, and state to state may be different, right? So I want to throw that out there. But we bought the car, and then he said there's an agency, and then they can register your car in different states. So I guess technically that lady was right. Maybe in Querétaro, if you're not a resident, you can't buy a car. But what ended up happening was we had this agency register our car in Guerrero, right? And so our car has Guerrero plates. So they were like, yeah, in Guerrero, foreigners can buy cars. No big deal. I mean, they didn't say no big deal, but that's the process. And so we were able to buy a car. Right? So, and I think there's a few different states that you can do that in. Now, I know laws are always changing. So again, this was a couple of years ago. Things may have changed by now. But that was a process you could do to buy a car. If you're a resident, obviously it's much easier. Then you don't have to worry about all that. You can just register your car in the state you buy it.
And having a car here is insurance is very inexpensive. Yearly, we pay maybe about $400, something like that.
For the year, I think we pay about $400.
I forgot 3 or 4. I confused with my property tax. So it's 500.
Not either.
Yeah.
Insurance here is very inexpensive. Now, in Querétaro, it was good to have a car. Now that we've moved to Mexico City, our car sits a lot more. Right. Because of things like public transportation. Right. And as we've already mentioned at the beginning, when we talked about this life here in Mexico City, I mean, public transportation is awesome, right? We've been here 6 weeks, and it took me over a month to fill up the car, right? When we got here to Queretaro, I maybe had like a third of a tank. And I probably went a week or so or more before I had to fill up, and I filled it up, and then I went about a little over a month, and I just barely filled up the car like yesterday. I only put in 500 pesos yesterday or the day before because we don't use the car that much. And driving in Mexico City is obviously going to be an experience, and an experience that not everybody can handle. I'm going to put that out there because
not me. I cannot handle it.
You can't handle me sitting in the car.
I cannot. That's true.
And I say that because obviously going back to the idea that Mexico City is a huge city and there's so much traffic, and driving standards are not the same here in Mexico as they are in the U.S. Again, you just have people change lanes at will. Sometimes use a blinker. Most times they don't. People tend to run lights or run a little bit more here. Which I always find great. Even buses, people will drive on the wrong side of the streets. There may be a two-way traffic, and cars will drive down the wrong way, like they won't see anybody. And you're talking like in neighborhoods. I'm not talking like passing. I'm talking like in the neighborhood here in Apolis. I'll see cars go down the wrong lane. It's just a whole different world, right? So be prepared for that craziness. Now, again, it's like that kind of in all of Mexico, even in Querétaro. I know people complained about, just the driving experience in Mexico is different than in the U.S. for sure. But I would say it's magnified in Mexico City. I come from Texas. I come from Houston. People drive fast and crazy there all the time. So for me, I'm not a nervous person for the most part. So I can handle that kind of stress a little bit better. But there are times even I get a little bit kind of stressed out. Like I know Landy or Louie will be talking to me, and I'll be like, "Shut up! like I gotta focus right now at this moment." There's cars coming from every angle and every direction.
Yeah.
Because another thing that I've never really heard anybody talk about in other videos is just the way Mexico City is set up. I know a lot of places in the U.S. It's a kind of in a much more grid system, right? Everything just kind of crosses nice and 90-degree angles. I mean, even just here in our neighborhood, you have like 4 or 5 roads coming together, and it's not just they're crossing at X's and the third road comes this way, and so you have to like look in multiple directions and know which, like this way is a one-way this way, and this way is a one-way this way, and this one's a two-way this way, and so you have to keep your head on the swivel. There's so many things going on, and
if people don't like the way, not used to the way people drive here, just don't drive. You can just park your car in the parking lot, and
or sell it.
Or just keep it. You just never know how long you're gonna stay there. Or maybe you do a weekend trip somewhere. It's good to have it. Like we go to Soriana to buy food. And we need a car. We cannot carry everything. I'll call a Didi. That was 10 minutes drive, but it's just saves so much headache. It's good to have one, but you don't have to drive it. At night it might be okay.
If you already have it, keep it.
Sure.
But I would say maybe if you're coming to Mexico City directly, don't buy it for a long time. I would personally say wait for a long time before you make that decision to buy a car. Because again, you can get around easy. There are buses which are very nice and comfortable all over Mexico that can take you to places. The private bus lines are very nice here. We took one to Pueblo just to kind of experience.
Oh, the NET.
And the bus here
was so good.
Very nice. Very comfortable. They're double decker. They have little
TV screen.
Like little pads where you can play watch movies. Kind of like an airline. You can play games, watch movies, watch shows.
Oh, it's good.
They are in Mexico, but they're very comfortable and very nice and very inexpensive. You remember what the price was to Puebla? Maybe like
about maybe $30-$40, something like that.
Maybe $30.
Yeah.
Which is about what? Maybe about like maybe 600 pesos, right? A little over 600 pesos. So but again, for a very nice, high quality, nice bus line. So if you come to Mexico City and you want to travel places, it is an option. Again, when we bought the car in Querétaro, it was different. Again, to everybody, their own experience is going to dictate what they
but should they bring the car from the US here, or what do you think? Or they sell, which is more convenient?
Again, I think that's going to go on your plans.
That they have to leave, go to the border every 6 months.
Right. If you come in, again, this is something that we don't have a ton of experience on. This is what they call the TIP, right? It's the temporary import permit. And again, if I'm not mistaken, like you said, I think every 6 months you have to go back to the border to renew your tip. Again, there may be agencies that can do it for you. Again, we've never done it, so
Yeah.
if anybody out there can speak to that, again, let us know.
So they're still gonna buy the U.S. car insurance,
And they have
right? Oh, not here or there.
And they probably have to have U.S. car insurance, and that would probably.
I think there's someone asked me this question before. There's online you can buy those insurance on the website.
For a U.S. car.
Yeah, like you can pre-buy buy the insurance cover 2 countries.
Right.
Yeah,
like
some
I know,
insurance.
Again, the one thing I can't speak on is that when we went back to Houston and we had our Mexican car, all I had to do was call our insurance company, and they got us like a document, a piece of paper that pretty much said that this car is covered. When it goes into the U.S., it is insured. And so it was kind of the documentation you needed to show in case you got pulled over. Like, this was my proof of insurance.
Right, you have
from
insurance.
Mexico, right? Now, again, the only caveat with that was that if something happened, the car couldn't be fixed in the U.S. So, like, if we were in an accident, we had to bring the car back to Mexico to be fixed.
How you bring it? Have another car tow it back?
Yeah, exactly. Bringing a car, it's all about, just like everything, it's a personal decision. Do you plan on staying a long time? Because if you're only going to be here a year or two, and you don't really plan on staying much longer, then maybe keep the car. And every 6 months, it's not a bad. You can take a trip down to Belize or back to the U.S. if you need to get your tip. And maybe it's not that big a deal, because if, like, let's say 2 years, well, that's only 1-2 trips, and then it's only 2 trips in 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Every 6 months, 6 months, and then the 2 years, then you go back home. So it's not really that big a deal for some people. Now, for some, it may be a big deal, right?
Yeah, it also depends where they live.
Right.
If they live closer to the border, that's easier.
It's easier.
Yeah.
And then I heard once you become a permanent resident, you cannot have an imported car. You cannot own a U.S. plated car once you become a permanent resident.
Permanent.
And again, there may be some little clauses there that kind of be able to work around, but I don't think so. I think once you're a permanent resident, you have to give up your tip, and you can't drive a U.S. plated car. I think there are special zones, maybe like in Baja, it might be different,
right?
Or I think I heard there's like even in Cancun and Yucatan, that might. But again, it's like a special zone. But how do you get your car anywhere? Once it's there, it's stuck there. You can't drive it out. Once you drive it out of there, to go back to the border or anywhere else, technically now you are breaking the law. Now again, can you get away with it? That's up to you. But again, technically, once you leave that state, you're kind of breaking the law. So.
And then there's also some advantage as we have a Guerrero plate or Mexican plate.
Yeah, like I said, we've driven back home a few times, and I know a big concern sometimes people have when they drive here in Mexico is, am I going to be targeted because I have a U.S. car? Again, my simple answer to that is no, right? But it can happen, sure. But it's always kind of nice to have that Mexican plated card, because then you just kind of blend in and you don't really stick out. Again, our car for the most part is a very basic car.
And every time before our long trip, we always keep the car dirty,
outside.
like a ghetto car.
Yeah, don't wash it. Just let it get a little dirty. Right,
yeah.
And then just kind of, we have it's like a dark red car. It just looks like any common car on the road.
No, nothing eye-catching. Keep low key.
Yeah, we're just a family from Guerrero coming through.
Exactly.
Don't bother us.
And once we drove it all the way to Houston, and I think it's funny. We drove to some neighborhood. So you were making a joke, like one Mexican man
had a Guerrero plate.
Yeah, they may think we are the worker. Like, hey, you should come here.
We're going through a construction site. Yeah, park here. Yeah.
And once we drove in, it's also easy. They don't even stop us.
Yeah, and then like a lot of times when you go, again, concern people have are going to be these checkpoints on the road. Like when you enter, especially northern Mexico, you kind of see a lot of checkpoints with police and stuff. Again, people have the feeling, whether it's true or not. We can't speak to that about am I being targeted because I have a U.S. plate? Are they going to pull me over and try to, bribe me or whatever? But again, they see us, they see the Guerrero plates. They're just every time we've probably gone, I would say minimum through. There's about 10 checkpoints, right? Police checkpoints and military checkpoints, and every time it's just been like they don't even look at. Just go through. They don't even look at us, talk to us. Again, I think that has a little bit to do that we have the Mexican plated car. They just whatever go.
Yeah, and I think I'm from Peru. We always joke about it.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of our. Anything else you want to add on?
I think that was it. Transportation. Yeah, I think having a car is convenient for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't feel you travel so much, you can rely on the bus. You live in the central, anywhere can be walkable or take a bus. You don't need a car.
No.
You are okay to call Didi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Didi's always a good price here. Okay. And then I think we have one last question. I think it's from Angela. So if you're still out there, Angela, it says, well, on the water subject, how do you wash your vegetables? In the sink with regular tap water or lime juice? So for us personally, and again, I know people are going to have opinions about that. We just use the tap water from the sink, right?
And we don't eat the salad. I cook all the vegetables.
But we still wash the vegetables.
We wash, yes.
So
but I mean, for people who eat salad, you may want to use drinkable water after washing from the tap water.
Right. And I know that there is
a filtered water.
No, it's like a powder or
the
liquid.
Liquid,
right?
yes.
I can't remember the name.
You can find it in any supermarket.
And it's usually going to be in the produce section.
Right. Yeah.
And again, you get the vegetables, you put them in a bowl of water, and then you pour a little bit of this liquid in it, and help supposedly kind of get any extra excess pesticides and stuff off. So that's a very kind of safe way to, or safer, for some people who feel it's necessary to do. I can't remember the name, but it's out there.
Right.
For the most part, we've always used tap water in Queretaro and here.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we've ever had any big major issues as far as getting ill. Maybe we've gotten ill. Maybe it's maybe because of the water, but I don't think
maybe
so.
just we cooked all the vegetables.
Yeah, we cook.
Yeah,
and
we
most of our
don't.
stuff that we do with veggies is cooked. We never eat any raw veggies. So maybe that helps us.
And normally I go to restaurant. I don't like to eat the salad. I don't trust the way how they wash it.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it comes to water, again, we use tap. If you want to use lime juice, I've never personally heard about that. Maybe it works.
Yeah, it can be the way.
Or use that liquid that you find in the grocery store.
Yeah.
And that's to kind of help.
Put some salt, the old traditional way.
Salt works.
Salt water, wash fruits. We used to do that.
I've done that with the berries, like with the blueberries and blackberries. Like I'll maybe put them in the salt water, kind of shake it up a little bit.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We've been okay. Everything's still going strong.
We're getting stronger.
All right. So if there's no more questions out there, again, for those who are watching right now, we do appreciate the time. If there's any questions, you can always leave them there. We can always answer them at a later time. If you have any topics that you'd like to hear from us, again, whether you're watching live or you're watching later once it's posted, again, we'd love to hear from you. And last,
I think that's it. Thanks for joining us today.
Our first live.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good day. Enjoy
the weekend.
Enjoy the weekend. All right, happy Friday.
All right. Bye. Time to get Louie soon. It's okay.